What's going on, and welcome back to another money-saving gear hack and tips and tricks of the trade. And in this video we're going to be going over how to create a 550 cord sling loop for your stock, which will allow your sling to freely articulate from the right to the left side of the stock and then from the left back over to the right hand side of the stock, enabling you to be able to freely transition that stock and that rifle from your dominant shoulder over to your non-dominant shoulder and then back from your non-dominant over to your dominant, enabling you to be able to manipulate the gun with a lot more ease, prevent that sling from getting caught up on your kit, as well as preventing the sling from potentially choking you out while you're doing those shoulder transitions. So with that, it should be a pretty simple and quick, straightforward video. It doesn't take a lot to do this. For the sake of the video, we'll just use this piece of nylon strap with the two tri-glides that you see here to simulate a V-tack sling. About 20 inches of 550 cord, a lighter, a pair of scissors, and then the stock that you'll be configuring this 550 cord sling loop through on. So with that, it's pretty simple. You're going to take your 550 cord, pass it through whatever sling channel or QD swivel that you may have on your stock, and create roughly 2 to 3 loops depending on what that stock will allow. For this one, we'll do 3. I have a SB Tactical off to the side here that I'll show you at the end on how that will work, or how that comes together when it's all said and done, and then that way you can kind of compare and contrast. So we've got our 2 loops. This tied off loop will end up being our 3rd loop, but you want to try and get these as close to equal length on either side, and then you'll bring that excess down and tie off just an overhand knot close to the top of the stock, so that way you can equally distribute essentially the loose end, or that loose loop, between the other loops on that 550 cord loop, like so. So you'll just need a little bit of space. You don't need a finger width. You can do a little bit less than a finger width of space, and then that will also help prevent the loop from coming over the backside of the stock like you see here, causing you to have issues. For the classic M4 style stock, it kind of does it regardless of how tight you try and make this. But when it comes to like your SB Tactical stocks like you see this one, that excess isn't going to allow it to come over because of the way that you have the loop tied through the QD swivel. So if you have swivels, it makes it a lot easier just because it controls the loop and how far it can move forward and backwards. So that's what it looks like when it's done on that stock. But for this guy, we have our loop. You can absolutely go ahead and trim these down, burn the ends, depending on however close you want to do it. I usually leave a little bit of excess, and then I'll actually fold this into where the sling is tied off to the loop itself, so that way I have the excess to be able to make any adjustments in the event that this comes out. So with that, we'll take our sling, pass this through all 3 loops on the stock, like so. And then, like I said, with having that little bit of tail, you just fold that over. And then get this as tight as possible. Pass it through that first tri-glide, and then like so we have essentially that small little loop that the 550 cord is passing through. So we'll continue to tighten this down, pass it through the rest of the tri-glide. And then when you get to this point, just give yourself a little bit of slack, pull the excess out, kind of locking all of that 550 cord in there. Hold it in place by just pushing back on the back side of that excess material you have, pull it through, and that will lock everything in place. And then you can go ahead and run that rest of that excess material through your second tri-glide. And then if you need to adjust this guy a little bit, you can go ahead and do that. There we go. Alright, so now we have that 550 cord loop set up with our sling attached to it, which will allow that sling to articulate over from the right to the left, and then from the left back over to the right. So it is as simple as that when it comes down to it. And then like you can see on this one here, same concept. If my fingers were just the sling, it would be able to rotate over from the left, or from the right to the left, and then back over from the left to the right. So pretty simple and straightforward little tip and trick that will make manipulating your gun and transitioning in between your dominant and non-dominant shoulders a lot easier, and prevent the possibility of potentially having your sling get caught up on your kit and or choking you out. So with that, if you have any questions, please feel free, leave a comment. We'll help you out in any way that we can, and we'll see you next time.